Hi, I'm Trevor Conquergood. Welcome to this week's R&K Software Club's video of the week. And the topic for today is going to be how can you create an applique from a regular old embroidery filled in embroidery design. And specifically this question comes from somebody who has like a PES or any kind of stitch-based embroidery design. In other words, if you've just got a design of an apple like this and you wanted to turn it into an applique, how could you do that? And why is it not as easy as I was expecting it to be, And so, yes, when you open up an embroidery design, that's a stitch-based format, such as a PES or any stitch-based format, EXP, DST, VIP, VP3, JEF, and on and on and on, doesn't matter. They're basically files that are made up of how to control your embroidery machine. So there are XY coordinates on where to move the hoop and commands like needle up and needle down for jumps versus stitches, and color information like which color comes next on the machine. But they're different than the Floriani WAF files. And we talked about this in last week's video. And so if you enjoy this video, you might like last week's video as well, where we talked about the difference between when I make a design and I have a piece of artwork. And this apple actually comes from, I'm just going to click on New Design and start over for you guys. This apple came from the Custom Shapes library where I chose Easy Art. Scroll all the way down to the bottom to find this apple. And now I have basically a piece of artwork that's in the pink color and a piece of artwork in the light pink color, and in the darker brown color I've got like 6 or 8 pieces of artwork there. And you can click on those pieces of artwork and turn them into any style of embroidery that you want that's along the bottom, whether it be an applique or a full-filled embroidery. And that's really what the design was like a bunch of filled in shapes, right? So I just clicked on fill, selected the black color, clicked on auto satin, told it things like optimize entry exit. This is, creating a regular old embroidery design from artwork is quite easy because you can choose any style you want. And if you wanted to convert that into applique, well, you would have this simple shape that you could just click on and convert it to applique. But what happens is people don't have that simple WAF file. They have this PES file. And so it's more like this, but it's different because when you open it up, it doesn't just make one piece for the apple, does it? I'm sure you've already experienced this. So let's go ahead and look at that. I'm going to say File and Save As and just go on my desktop and call it Apple. And we'll save it as a WAF because we always save our WAF file first. And then we'll File and Save As, and we'll make it any stitch format that you want. It doesn't matter. Choose PES and save. And so I'll close the design and basically close everything so that nothing's open, and then show you that when I say open, I have 2 copies of the apple on my desktop, the WAF file and the PES file. And so we'll go ahead and open the WAF and show you that just like before, we still have the one basic shape for the apple and its background. But when we choose open and then choose the PES file, now we need to learn about this little option here called Convert to Outlines. And if we don't check it, the software really doesn't allow us to do a lot in terms of editing the stitches. They open as the basic stitches. And so I'll say open, and you'll notice that when I look at the sequence view, that it simply says stitches instead of artwork. It's like they're locked. Now I can resize them bigger or smaller, but the software won't generate any new stitches there, and so you could add to it and really you can do whatever you want, but it's going to always be the original stitches. It'll scale them bigger or smaller, but it won't add any or change them in any way, unless when you open it, you ask it to, and you click on that PES file and you ask it to convert to outlines. Now the software will read the stitches and it will interpret those stitches and it will make shapes based upon those stitches. And so now if you look at the red color, you will see that there are new shapes. It says run stitch and stitches and run stitch and fill stitch. And notice that the fill stitch has been broken into pieces, and understand that that is because every time the software saw a new type of embroidery. So now it sees a run stitch because it did this piece. Now it's run stitch to get over to the other side, and then it's got the fill for the other side, and then it'll run stitch down to the bottom. And any time in between where it says stitches, there's usually just one or two little stitches that's in between the fill and the run, and the software wasn't sure how to interpret it. So it just leaves it. And essentially, if you open a design up and just select everything and make it bigger or smaller, it puts new stitches in the fills, and the run stitches and the regular stitches just kind of stay the same. And so you can resize it, and it will generate new stitches. But if you wanted to make this background apple into an applique, now you've got kind of a challenge, because there's no shape here to click on that you can click on applique, is there? So now what you need to do is learn, okay, first at this point, there are several ways that you could accomplish what you want. First of all, you can always click on the artwork tool and go click, 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 and draw the shape of an apple and make it an applique. And so understand that often that is just the easiest way to get what you want. But option number 2 might be to select all this big pink mess and use an outline tool and have the software create an outline around it. But option number 3, and the one for today, is I want to learn about the actual shapes that got made and what could I do about them and with them to accomplish the task of trying to make this into an applique. So first of all, obviously a lot of what this is here is not needed if you're making an applique, because that run stitch was really the original underlay. Right? Because you kind of have to look back at how the design stitches out to understand what's happened, because the software, if we just simulate sewing, is doing underlay. And so it walks around the design, and I'll just make it go a little faster. It stitches all of the underlay segments, and see how it stops and walks from here to there? Well, oftentimes when the software sees a change in that pattern, it will sense it. So it sees that fill, and then it sees a run stitch to get over here, and then another fill, and then a run stitch to get down there, and then a fill, and then a run stitch to get back up top, and then it looks like it walks all the way down to the bottom. And so it interprets all that, and when it reads it, it makes all of those different pieces. So you really just want the fills, is what we're to kind of show you what I can do is I can select on that piece of fill and scroll through here, and maybe hold control on my keyboard and select on another piece of fill and another piece of fill, and just keep looking through here and finding all the fill segments. And isn't that the actual shape that we're trying to get? And yes, it is. And so that's one way to find it all. All right. And so another way, just to point out, is that you kind of have like little filters in your sequence view. And so if you change that to say fill, it only shows you the fill pieces. And it kind of hides those run stitches and manuals. It doesn't mean they're not there. It just doesn't show them so that you can easily select all the fills pieces. And maybe you say copy and then click off, and then you can simply go back to all segments and you haven't changed anything. But now if you go paste, you've made a copy of just those fills, and you could make them green, and have a different apple altogether. Now, all right, so I was able to isolate the fill pieces and make that background shape, but I still don't really have what I want in terms of, I can't just click on applique and now it's going to applique everything, because it's kind of gotten confused, right? There's a bunch of little pieces and they're all getting turned into appliques. So let's hit undo. And another technique might be to just take all of those pieces and convert them into a piece of artwork. So you're almost like deconstructing the embroidery, right? And just take a little inspection that there's all these different little pieces, and I'm going to try welding them together. And so I noticed this little one here, the sort of smallest one of the lot, that one there, wasn't really overlapping with the other shapes. So I'll just maybe reshape it a little bit to make sure that when I weld, I want to make them all touching each other. So you kind of check around, and yeah, there's that piece and this piece, and they all seem to have a little amount of overlap. So again, you select all that whole color, just click on the color here in the sequence view, and now you can use artwork tools like weld to weld it into one piece. And now I've got one piece. And so, okay, yes, you can deconstruct the original filled in embroidery design and turn it into an applique if that's what you really want. So, understanding, I guess, what happens when you open stitches is a powerful thing because it unlocks a lot of abilities to, making what it is that you want. And so I hope that was of interest to you guys. Another thing I wanted to show you, though, before I kind of wrap this video up, is a cool option. So when you click on open and you're opening up your PES file and you click on convert to outlines, there's an advanced tab. And so if we explore the advanced tab, you'll see that there's the option to remove underlay. And it's either simple, aggressive, or none. And so if I set it to aggressive and ask it to merge fills together and say OK and open the design up, so now it's going to, open up the design again. And this time when the process, when the software reads it, it tries to clean it up for us. So because we told it it could remove all the underlay. And so now if you look at that red color, you'll notice that there's still one run stitch to walk kind of from the middle to the top. And I'm not sure why there's little stitches down there, but you can obviously just click delete on them, right? And then you don't really need the run either. So basically all you wanted was that fill. And now you can click on Appliquè. And so, yes, you absolutely can learn more about how to convert stitches into shapes and then make, new embroidery techniques from them. And so that was a great question. Thanks for asking. How can I make an applique from my fully filled in embroidery designs? I hope you enjoyed that. Until next week, have a great day. Thanks for listening, and bye-bye.